As we said when we started the show back in January, the war room, we shifted war room from the impeachment to the pandemic, and we were the first media company in the world, the first show in the world to call this a pandemic and to talk about the Chinese Communist Party, the Wuhan lab. We did all that in mid-January of 2020, and we talked about what went on in 2019 in Wuhan and the heroic doctors that were trying to out the Chinese Communist Party for what they were doing. We said that this is going to be a pandemic. That's going to be a global crisis. It's going to trigger an economic crisis. It's going to trigger from that a capital markets and financial crisis. And it's going to trigger a political crisis. Now we're in the middle of a constitutional crisis. That's not Steve Bannon. That's Sean Parnell, a highly decorated combat veteran who ran for Congress, one of the leaders of his generation, just talked about the constitutional crisis that's now coming to the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, which is essentially evenly split between people that think the election was okay and people who think the election, something was wrong and that these mail-in ballots with no chain of custody are a problem. And that's being argued out in the court. YouTube has just made a decision that they're going to start taking this stuff down. We just got a word from the populist press people that I think Right Side Broadcast, which is one of the streaming services along with Real America's Voice and others that have been the backbone of the Trump revolution. I just hear that they've been taken down for their coverage of this rally that's going to take place this Saturday that Amy Kramer and Lynn Kramer and others have been working on. They've got a caravan going across the country. So this pandemic, the railhead of which is the Chinese Communist Party. Remember that, the Chinese Communist Party, its biological weapons program, whether it was, as some people think, done on purpose, or as myself and others think, it was because of a gain of function experiment or something that went awry. But the center of that is in Hubei province in Wuhan. And the Chinese Communist Party is 100% should be held accountable, which they have not been today, as they try to, even the New York Times now says they're going a massive campaign to try to avoid any blame for this. And we're going to be relentless. We are not going to back off an inch. We're not going to back off 1 inch. We're not going to back down an inch in getting to the bottom of what happened in this election. We're not going to back down 1 inch in our constant assaults on the Chinese Communist Party. We fully support this rally that's going to take place on Thursday, on the 10th, here in Washington, D.C. It's trying to flip. It's a bunch of human rights organizations that now are getting focused on the Chinese Communist Party as a transnational criminal organization. We had Liz Ure on yesterday. There's a lot of backup data and evidence to support that. And later in the show, you got Darren, Beattie, you got Revolver. We're going to have people from the whistleblower movement. Many people are coming forward now about these tapes that are coming out, about these professors to talk about the corruption of the American elite. And in fact, Jack Maxey is going to be on. The Senate just put out a huge report about Hunter Biden and guess what, Burisma. But if you look into the report, page after page after page of what was on the hard drive from hell that shows the compromise of Hunter Biden and the Biden family by the Chinese Communist Party. In Hunter Biden's own words, he's in business with the spy master, he said. The guy's not the spy master, but he said the spy master of the Chinese Communist Party. He was a spy, right? He was an intelligence officer, but not the spy master. Okay, I want to bring in now Bernie Kerik. Bernie, there's so much going on. One of the things, YouTube's taking people down because of fake news. I just want to hear from you. You're a former police commissioner of New York City. You were there with the mayor in the aftermath of 9/11. You spent your career in the military and in civilian life, in law enforcement. Are we crazy here, or is there not? Is there evidence that you've seen, because you're the guy pulling this together? Is there evidence of voter fraud, and is there evidence of election fraud in your mind, in your professional opinion?
The evidence is overwhelming, Steve. That's the only word I can use. It's overwhelming. Whether it's the machines, the Dominion machines, and the Softmatic, the hardware, whether it's the additional ballots that were brought into Pennsylvania, Michigan, and other states, we have probably, I don't even know the number, 2,000 affidavits by American citizens that either saw evidence of corruption and reported it, or were involved in pieces of this, such as, somebody went down to cast their vote. They were told their vote was already cast. and come to find out there's hundreds or thousands of these. How do you have 8,000 people in a state that requested ballots to vote that were deceased? This is a coordinated effort, and in every one of these states, whether it's Pennsylvania, Michigan, Arizona, Georgia, Nevada, you name it, the method of what they did is all the same. These election officials didn't wake up on the morning of September 3rd and all come up with the same idea and go into their office of duties that day and then start conducting business exactly the same in every one of these states. This was a coordinated effort. This was a scheme. You know, when you think of federal prosecutions, what do you do? You put somebody up before a grand jury, you put them under oath, you have them testify. All these affidavits are sworn under oath under the penalty of perjury. They can go to jail, go to prison for 5 years for lying on these affidavits. There's thousands of them, thousands. And for the Justice Department, or anybody else for that matter, to say there's no evidence, it's ludicrous.
I want to go back. There's three verticals. If you look at it, if you look at the complaints and look at where the lawsuits have been, you've got one vertical which is just illegal voting, and that is people that were that registered at post office boxes, at federal buildings, either were too young, not registered in the state, not a resident, or resident in multiple states, illegal aliens, criminals. I mean, you've got a whole litany of that. Smith laid it out in Georgia, but you've got that in Nevada, you've got that in Arizona. So you've got that vertical, right? And those come up to, depending on the state, tens to hundreds of thousands of ballots. Then you've got the mail-in ballot fiasco, and there in Wisconsin, they're still arguing because they tried to change the law by just kind of changing it, not even going to changing the law, just writing a manual. And you've got the long-term care plan, 200,000 applied when normally I think it's 15,000, and you got the early voting. Plus you have the chain of custody and mail-in ballots. So you have all these issues, whether Pennsylvania, Georgia, Wisconsin, about this whole issue of chain of custody and mail-in ballots. Then the third vertical, you've got Dominion voting system. You got this whole issue with the algorithms and whether it's a tabulator or calculator. You know, people from Nevada to Michigan and Antrim County to Ware County in Georgia. They're talking about in Maricopa County, Arizona, trying to get their hands on these some of these systems. Some, as in Michigan, have already been turned over. But you've got these three kind of verticals, right? And in those verticals, each one's a deep shaft to be mined of evidence. And only in a couple of weeks, with limited resources and limited manpower, you've got over 2,000 affidavits. It'd be 50 volumes, right? And you could have more as it went on. And so this is what I don't understand. Why are people trying to suppress getting just to the bottom of this in each one of these verticals, Bernie? Why is this a huge pushback? You know, Biden and the Democratic Party won't assist, right? The media just completely either suppress it or makes Rudy look like a nut job. And now you've got the oligarchs, YouTube, et cetera, saying, hey, game over. You passed the safe harbor. We've determined it's over, and we're going to take down anything that questions this. So my point to you is that you are the recipient and the guy pulling it together. What's the next phase to try to force this information out there, and so people see in living color the depth of the evidence that's out there?
Well, I think there's a couple issues. I think some of these lawsuits are, they'll continue to do that. The road show that we went on, Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, Pennsylvania, that pushed a lot of this evidence to the legislators themselves and basically said, look, here's what you have. Here's what happened. Here's what we already know. Here's what we need you to do. And here's what the law allows you to do. And I have to be honest, Steve, a lot of these legislators don't even understand the Constitution and the abilities and the constitutional ability they have to basically reject the certifications that these governors have been involved in. I think a lot of our educational process to them was telling them what they really can do by law. So that's one thing. I also think the president should take these volumes of affidavits and basically give them Well, first of all, give them to Texas. Give them to Texas. If Texas, I don't know all the elements of the Texas lawsuit involving their lawsuit against Arizona and Pennsylvania, Michigan, Georgia. I don't know what the elements are, but I know one thing. We've got thousands of affidavits that could probably be helpful to them if they don't have them already. And I just think we just have to keep pushing. And I'm gonna say this. I say it every day, Steve. The Democrats stole the election. Joe Biden and his party stole the election, but we have an ability to get it back. If Donald Trump loses this election, it's not the Democrats, it's not Joe Biden. It's the Republican Party, it's the rhinos that didn't do their job. It's people like Duncan, the lieutenant governor of Georgia, and the governor of Georgia, those guys refuting real live evidence and basically telling their legislators, you know what, forget that, let's move on with life. Don't, go with the certification. We're going to move forward. If they certify and if they pass this on to move forward with Joe Biden as president, they will have committed malfeasance. They will have committed a crime because they know it's not real.
Bernie, you come out of law enforcement, DOJ and FBI, wouldn't you expect that given 2,000 affidavits and across multiple states from Arizona, Nevada, Georgia, up in Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, where is the official movement of people that are supposed to investigate this type of stuff? Where's Attorney General Barr? Has he seen the 50 volumes of the 2,000 affidavits plus?
You know what, Steve? Listen, as somebody that was targeted by the U.S. government, and I'm sure you'll understand this, and many of your listeners will as well. There could be a one-line sentence in a paragraph of a report in the New York Times that says Joe Blow did something wrong. And you know what happens? The next morning, after that one line in the New York Times or the Washington Post, the FBI is standing at some guy's doorway, dropping a subpoena on him, his accountants, whatever it related to, whatever the crime or the alleged crime related to, they're all over it, based on one sentence or based on a paragraph. Here, we have a consistent scheme across the board, coordinated by different states, of the biggest election scandal in world history. And the FBI and the DOJ is invisible. I don't get it. I don't get it. I don't know why. I do think that the president should order the attorney general to conduct an investigation. Why aren't the machines? Why aren't the Dominion machines and the software that was used in these states, states like Michigan and Pennsylvania and others? Why haven't they been seized? Why haven't they been secured? Why haven't they been put on hold so we can look at them?
Bernie,
I don't know.
Bernie, can we ask you to stay over just for a few minutes on the other side of the commercial break? I've got a couple questions about this and also about the CCP influence peddling here in the United States and their infiltration. Bernie Kerik, Darren, Beattie, Jack, Maxey, Raheem, Kassam, all next. War Room, Pandemic.
War Room, Pandemic, with Stephen K. Bannon.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
War Room, Pandemic. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
I just want to go back to Bernie and ask you, you're saying you believe the president should direct the Attorney General of the United States to commence an immediate investigation? Is that, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it's a pretty bold statement.
Yeah, but Steve, the president is the chief law enforcement officer of the country. That's the reality. The DOJ reports directly to him, the attorney general. There's overwhelming evidence that there was election fraud, that there was voter fraud. It's overwhelming. Why aren't they investigating? I don't know, but they should be. They investigate, everything and anything else relating to Donald Trump And this is the biggest hijacking of an election in U.S. history, and nobody's looking at it. I don't know. I don't get it.
Bernie, I want to pivot because I know you got to get back to work. I want to pivot to this. The Senate put out this report yesterday. I think it's 249 pages on Hunter Biden, Burisma, et cetera. Goes back to a lot of stuff that Mayor Giuliani's been talking about for a long time, but particularly in the China part, in the aspect of China, you were engaged with the hard drive from hell. Do you believe there's enough evidence on that hard drive of Hunter Biden and Joe Biden's brother being James Biden being compromised, or at least the appearance of being compromised by the Chinese Communist Party, that a special prosecutor should be designated to look into that in a formal way?
Let me start by saying this, Steve. That 240-page document is a vindication of everything that Giuliani did with regard to Ukraine, the Biden family, Joe Biden, Hunter Biden. It's a complete vindication, because what they came away with was everything that Giuliani had talked about from the beginning. And yes, there should be a special prosecutor immediately to get into the background of this stuff. At the end of the day, you have Joe Biden, who wants to be the president of the United States, and his son and every one of his associates and partners are completely compromised. So I think the Intelligence Committee and the other committee that was there's two of them, I think, did a phenomenal job at laying this out. But there was a bunch of stuff that they still did not have access to, people that did not respond, and a special prosecutor with subpoena power, criminal subpoena power, would be able to get to the bottom of it. Worse than the report, it's going to be worse than what we found on the hard drive.
Okay, right before we let you go, are we going to see a more aggressive? You guys done an aggressive thing of pulling together this information. Are we going to see even more aggressive focus by the Trump campaign? You and Jenna Ellis and Rudy and Boris and the entire team to get this information out so that people can see in all its glory the affidavits and the evidence that backs up the claim that this election was stolen?
As aggressively as we possibly can. I think, we're running out of time. There's two things going against us right now: time and Republican legislators. That's our battle, dealing with time, dealing with Republican legislators who don't have a spine, who don't have a backbone, who don't have the courage to do the job that they were sworn to do. If we had that, I wouldn't be worried about anything. I'm worried about time and them.
Bernie, how do people get access to you during the day? What's your social media contact points?
Bernard Kerik at Twitter. That's the easiest way. Just send me a direct message.
Okay, Bernie, thank you very much for taking time away today to do this. Thank you. Bernie Kerik did an amazing job on this, on helping Mayor Giuliani with the hard drive from hell. Someone else who helped bring it forward to the American people, my co-host, Jack Maxey, who's currently on assignment. Jack, tonight, I just want to tee it up, tonight at 5 o'clock, Jack and his analytical team that he has been working 20 hours a day pulling together. We're going to have the beginning episode of walking through some of the findings that they have found, particularly in this Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. We're going to start there. It's pretty amazing stuff. When you see the statistician that was from Harvard, that was part of the suit filed by Attorney General Paxton in the state of Texas. He talked about, I think, a 1 in quadrillion chance that Biden could have won this legitimately or fairly, given where Trump was in the evening, late in the evening of November 3rd. Jack Maxey starts to back that up with the analytics and to actually show you how it was done. That'll be tonight. We'll begin it tonight at 5 o'clock on the evening show. I want to turn now to Jack. No one in this country understands and has the details of really the Hunter Biden and the Biden family's compromised by the Chinese Communist Party than Jack Maxey. You have lived with this hard drive. You've gotten this information out. I think the principal reason we were taken down from Twitter was because you were putting that information out there for the world to see. You've had a chance to read this report. Give us your first assessment of the Senate report in regards to Hunter Biden, and particularly not even so much the Burisma part of it, but the CCP part.
Well, I mean, this document is called Hunter Biden, Burisma and Corruption, the Impact on U.S. Government Policy and Related Concerns. Certainly China plays into this document quite a bit, but it concentrates a bit on Burisma. One of the things that I thought was really interesting is they talk about the fact that Hunter Biden had Secret Service protection, took over 70 secret trips, or not secret, but foreign trips. But what's very interesting about this whole thing is he has Secret Service protection for 4.5 years, multiple trips to China, Ethiopia, all across Africa, Argentina, essentially the entire world. Hunter traveled with the Secret Service. But one thing that was not in the document that I wanted everybody to see, there was an email from May 27, 2014 from Vadim Pojarski, who is part of Burisma. And he says, "Dear Hunter, please just note that Nikolai instructed your big 14-seat private charter in case, bearing in mind the possibility you're taking your Secret Service protection detail with you." And Hunter decides, oh no, we're going to leave the Secret Service protection in Paris. Where is Hunter going? Kazakhstan. We also know that that same group that he went to visit in Kazakhstan gave John Kerry's daughter $1 million for a movie later on that year. So it's as corrupt as it could possibly get. They do reference several things about Bohai Harvest, but as I had done earlier, I'd be happy to share the information that we have from the hard drive with the Senate committee, because there's a lot more on there that they are just not paying attention to. Certainly, I've said it many times, the internal private annual meeting notes of Bohai Harvest should put everybody in jail. It was so clear that they were trying to buy U.S. strategic assets in the same time period that we sold them a company out of Detroit. Our allies in Sweden and in Germany denied them the ability to buy 3 companies that were also on their strategic target list. The entire private equity company is a complete scam. It, I think, could lead to systemic risk for Wall Street. The fact that the SEC is not on top of this is very problematic for me. As you can see right now, that's the email asking about whether or not Hunter's going to take his Secret Service detail to Kazakhstan. But it's something that's really quite frightening, Steve.
I want to go. We're going to have Darren Beattie come on in the next segment and talk about the Revolver. Now has up a story talking about this video off of this professor. And by the way, the whistleblower movement in Miles Grove got that to us, weeks ago. But talks about the compromise of the elites of the senior level of the American power structure and the government. How do you think the hard drive from hell basically reinforces that with the wire transfers, the engagement letters, the emails back and forth, the access to Tony Blinken and others when they're in the White House early on, right? There's the whole thing about FARA. So what do you think is the next step in really the investigation? Do you believe a special prosecutor, Jack, ought to be assigned to this to start to look into this with a subpoena power?
I think they should have a special prosecutor, but ironically, Steve, I don't think that we need to go that far. I think all you need to have is some person at the SEC paying attention and shut down all these accounts. I've been in multiple frauds or been in multiple fraud investigations on Wall Street, and this is one of the actions that the SEC can do. They can shut down all of the bank accounts associated so that the fraud cannot continue, because there's definitely going to be a clawback here. I see no way around it, because these things were sold fraudulently.
Jack, look forward. Just tease, you got about a minute. Tease what we're going to see tonight beginning at 5 o'clock in the 5 o'clock show. And I know we're going to do it over the next couple of days, but what have you guys been working on?
All right, you guys know I've been talking about this guy Vincent and the guys in Zurich. I don't know if you could throw up a little map of Pennsylvania or not, but he's showing visually the population of all the mail-in ballots, all the absentee ballots, and what you're going to see is shocking, that you can watch the dots populate in Long Island, just like we heard about the delivery of all those things. They're going to have a protest in Long Island at the post office there, apparently.
This is in by the way, they're in breaking news. There's a protest going on in Bethpage, which is the railhead of Jesse Morgan. Jesse Morgan also, I think we've got Jesse Morgan on the 5 o'clock show today. There's a protest in Bethpage, and in your analysis, does some of the lights come on around in New York City around Bethpage, or just not? I thought all these people were supposed to be voting from the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania.
Oh, yes, there are quite a few lights. There's lights in San Francisco, San Diego. There's every major city in America was voting in the Pennsylvania election. It's absolutely frightening. And one of the things that's so critical that I make a shout out to your audience, if they have the mail-in voter records from their state, get them to us, and we'll create the same visualization for you. Okay. The same scam occurred in every state.
Jack, we'll see you and the analytics team at 5 o'clock. I'm going to get Jesse Morgan on here, the truck driver, drill down more on his story, all at 5 o'clock tonight. We're going to take a short commercial break. Darren Beattie from Revolver breaking a really smart analysis of the infiltration of the American elite by the Chinese Communist Party. It's one of the reasons this election is so important. Most important election in 5,000 years in China. So said Lao Beijing. Back in a moment.
War Room Pandemic with Stephen K. Bannon.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
War Room Pandemic. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Welcome back to War Room, the Capitol Hill. We're going to get Darren Beattie, one of the driving forces in back of Revolver News. Amazing news story. But I want to put Populist Press up. Let's put the Populist Press homepage. Is it Right Side Broadcasting, which has been, along with Real America Voice, I think have been the backbone. I call Real America's Voice the streaming service of the Trump Revolution. Right Side Broadcast has also been out there. They've covered all the rallies. They've covered the March for Trump and the March for, Stop the Steal, everything like that. And it looks like, I guess they're tweeting out, the Populist Press has got it up, the story that it's been taken down by YouTube. I want to turn now to Darren Beattie of Revolver. Before we get to this big story, Darren, this is your specialty. You came to me literally years ago and said, hey, this is going to be a problem. You were the very first guy, I think, to identify this as a systemic problem. So what is going on with YouTube? Right now we're in the Supreme Court. We're in Supreme Courts in Wisconsin. Bernie Kerik's got 2,000 affidavits. People are drilling down on both election administration fraud, individual voter fraud. They've got all these questions about the Dominion voting systems that haven't been in Antrim County, Michigan, Ware County, Georgia. They're reviewing machines right now. All these verticals of looking at what happened in this election. The polling numbers are all shifting towards people thinking something was up. So explain to us, before we talk about the CCP, your article about the CCP, what is going on here with the oligarchs in Silicon Valley?
Well, it's truly remarkable. And what we see here, I think, is part of a broader trend whereby the pretense of America being a free society with free speech, the pretense of a society that allows free speech is being evaporated. And we saw this as a long progression. First, the big tech companies would just censor so-called hate speech. Then they just expanded that definition to include anyone who criticized open borders. Then when hate speech and all of its equivalents weren't enough, they added so-called conspiracy theories. And that included anyone who questioned, say, U.S. foreign policy in Syria, Hillary Clinton foreign policy in Libya. That became conspiracy theory, and YouTube and others used their algorithms to demote stories that contradicted the official narrative on this. And now we have this new censorship predicate known as disinformation, misinformation. As I've said in other interviews, this is particularly dangerous because disinformation and misinformation as censorship predicates are terms of art that come from the information warfare offices of our national security apparatus. By calling something disinformation or misinformation, you are inviting a national security tier response to censoring the information you're calling disinformation. And so now, whether it's outside of the narrative views on COVID, on the lockdowns, on pretty much anything, and now up to this election, this contested election, everything is forbidden on the level of these big tech platforms that govern an overwhelming percentage of political discourse in this country. And I think this is no different from what you would see in a country like China. Although in China they would perform the censorship at the government level, here in the United States the censorship is just as egregious, just as severe, just as an outrageous offense against liberties that this country was founded on. Simply they outsource the censoring to these big tech companies, but the same. The effect on speech is the same. I think it's a deeply, deeply disturbing development for our country.
What's your recommendation? What can be done about it?
Well, it's a very difficult question. There are no easy solutions. I think this is going to be a step-by-step slow process. I think there was a lot more opportunity, say, in 2017, right when Trump got in office. Now the problems kind of increased to the point that I think is very difficult to deal with. There are some silver linings. I'm very encouraged by the fact that, for instance, Nathan Symington was confirmed to the FCC yesterday. He's going to have a seat on the FCC with 5 people. He'll be one person of 5, so he can't do as much good as we would like, but it's excellent to have him there, and I know for a fact that he is very committed to free speech online.
Okay.
And Section 230 reform as well.
Okay, let's go to your story, because this is pretty explosive. It's a great analysis. I want to get the revolver piece up on the if the guys in Denver can do that. You've had this explosive situation about this woman named Fang Fang, who Congressman Swalwell may be wrapped up in it. It's some sort of BGY, as Miles Guo and the whistleblower movement says. This is the process of infiltration in which they use money, they use sex, they use finding out about you on the internet, every aspect they can to try to capture these people. You've got the Hunter Biden, Senate report that's coming out that references all the stuff with China and the compromise there with the money and the situation with being in business with some of the most nefarious companies in China, run by China, state intelligence services. And now this professor. Walk us through what's going on here, because I think every day it becomes more and more evident, and people can't back away from it, because senior members of the Chinese Communist Party cadre are just open in their and really they're kind of smug a way that they're coming forward and saying, hey, we essentially own the American elites. What's the story about that you've tied this all together, Darren?
Right. Well, look, as we discussed privately, this is an astonishing video, and I think I would love for every single American to be forced to watch this video 10 times a day to really understand the nature of the problem. It's a video, as you mentioned, of this Chinese professor, Di Dongsheng. He's the vice dean of the International Relations School at Renmin University. He holds other positions. He's the vice director and secretary of the Center for Foreign Strategic Studies in China. He has other positions. A very well-placed Chinese source told me and told Revolver that he is actually an informal advisor at the highest levels of the Chinese government with a direct line to President Xi. And this source that revealed this information is not a whistleblower type source. It's a Chinese national who's actually very pro CCP, who just happened to be privy to this information. So in any case, this character is very high up. He's very intelligent, as you can see from these interviews. And actually, his lectures, as blunt as they are, reveal a deeper and more sober and accurate understanding of the American power structure than I've ever seen from an American university professor, ironically. And in this video, which is, again, it's remarkable, has all kinds of politically incorrect stuff that certainly no professor in America would ever get away with saying, but the basic case that he lays out is that China had it so good since the 1970s in terms of compromising the inner power structure of the United States. And the principal vehicle for doing that was one faction of the American power structure, namely Wall Street. And he laments the fact that in 2008, with the financial crisis, the prestige and relative status of Wall Street to other factions of the American ruling class diminished. And then he mentions something terrible happened in 2016 when Donald Trump came into power, and he didn't allow Wall Street to be used as this vehicle for selling influence to China. And then, of course, he praises Biden for coming in. And I think the analysis is really what people need to see in this Revolver.news article. In fact, I'd be willing to say, go to Revolver.news right now, read this whole piece, share it. If it's not the best analysis that you've ever seen on the China problem, you can never go to Revolver again. It is truly the best analysis you will ever see. And the reason for that is that it really contextualizes how we should think about the Chinese threat. Of course, they're a rival. Of course, they're a geopolitical adversary. But if you watch a video, as remarkable and astonishing as it is, and yes, as smug as he is, and your take home is that the Chinese are the villains in this story, you're missing a big point. The villain in this story is not the Chinese guy doing what's best for the Chinese government. The villain in this story is the Wall Street woman who is an American selling out America. And I think that's a very important point. So that ultimately, as much as China is a threat, as much as we need to deal with it, the problem of China is ultimately the problem of America's corrupt, incompetent, dysfunctional, and perhaps even illegitimate ruling class. It is not as though America has a competent ruling class on everything, and they have a unique blind spot when it comes to China. Our Chinese policy is a failure because our policy on everything that matters for decades has been a failure, and this is the problem of the American ruling class. And so I think for those of us like you, like me, who want to deal with China seriously, we have to understand that I don't think we'll be able to actually deal with China seriously unless we deal with the problem of America's corrupt and illegitimate ruling class. And so, yeah.
You got to go to read the Revolver piece. And one of the reasons that Darren Beattie has not been a fire-breathing wild man on the CCP for many years. He's come to this by the revelations of the CCP itself and to see about the managed decline of the United States. Remember, the thesis in 16 is that the managed decline of the United States by its elites led to the rise of this populist movement as personified by Donald J. Trump. That's why Trump was able to upend and defeat Hillary Clinton. What this professor does, and what really it warms my heart to see that Darren Beattie and others are now, at Tucker Carlson, Darren Beattie, are now coming to the forefront of this to say, look, the problem is obviously the Chinese Communist Party is an existential threat to the United States and to freedom-loving people throughout the world, including people in China. However, they've got partners, and their partners are Wall Street and the global corporatist. And now the political class in the United States, that's the issue. And that's what this election's all about. That's why we've said on this election, not only is it the military officers supported Trump's election in the history of the Republic, we said, yeah, it's that. But for Lao Beijing, it's the most important election in 5,000 years of Chinese history. Because, as the professor says, for the first time, the United States actually stood up. And why did it stand up? Working class people and middle class people throughout the country had the back of Donald J. Trump. Darren, we've got about 30 seconds left. Where is your reporting going to go from here? By the way, I love the bet. If you don't think it's the best, don't come back to Revolver. Revolver is a must-go-to site. Give us your summary, sir.
I'm very confident. This article in particular. We also have a very shocking article about one of so-called President-elect Biden's nominees. But I just want to read the concluding sentence of this Revolver.news piece on China, and it's
time to drop gold. Because in a digital world.
And so while the video above, namely the video we've been speaking about, is a reminder of the sinister intentions of our Chinese rivals, it is ultimately a reminder that our true enemies are no foreign adversary. The true enemies of the American people are the people who control America. The villain in that video, as bad as the Chinese guy is, the professor is, the villain is the Wall Street woman who sold out our country.
Darren Beattie, we're gonna get your social media up in the next segment. Darren Beattie, Revolver News. Go to Revolver, a must-read site. We'll be back with a whistleblower from China in a moment.
War Room Pandemic with Stephen K. Bannon.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
War Room Pandemic. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Remember, go to Real America's Voice, go to the John Fredericks Radio Network, get its app, go to Rumble, go to Pluto, go to Roku, everywhere you can get this, get access to it. Go to our website, everywhere you can get this, and we're not going to back down. It's too important for the country. We're not going to back down the CCP, and we're not going to back down on getting to the truth of what happened in this election. Let me be brutally frank. You know, for years I've been all over the CCP, and quite frankly, when I stepped into the campaign in 2016, made sure that China was a major focus on the closing days of that, and obviously in the administration. It's all coming out now, right? It's all coming out now. This is what the fix is in. The Chinese Communist Party is an existential threat to the Chinese people, existential threat to Lao Beijing, which is old 100 names, which is basically the deplorables, the working class people in China, an existential threat to the United States of America, to our freedoms, and to freedoms of all freedom-loving people throughout the world. That is just a fact. That's a fact. Okay, we're not going to back off this, ever. We're not going to back off 1 inch. I'm going to turn now to Raheem Kassam. By the way, Ian from the Whistleblower Movement, I want to develop what he's saying so he's got more time. He's going to be on the show at 5 o'clock. I think we're trying to get Jesse Morgan, the truck driver, at 5 o'clock. We got Jack Maxey in this detailed analytics, the 5 o'clock show. Do not miss, I don't promote individual shows. Don't miss 5 o'clock, okay, on the Real America Voice Network, John Fredericks Network, everywhere else. Raheem Kassam. Pretty important news today out of YouTube, right? I mean, you're much more on top of this than I am. I'm just a crazy man that comes out and, puts up the content. You and the other team around here know about the distribution, but this is pretty important about YouTube.
Yeah, it's absolutely massive, and I want to run people back through it in case they've missed any of the detail in the last hour. Is that YouTube is saying that since yesterday was the safe harbor deadline for the U.S. presidential election, and they claim enough states have certified their election results to determine a president-elect, that YouTube will start removing any piece of content uploaded today or any time after that misleads people by alleging that widespread voter fraud or errors change the outcome of the 2020 U.S. election. Now, there's one thing that I didn't report to you before, which is their sign-off line on this whole thing, and that's this, quote, "As always, news coverage and commentary on these issues can remain on our site if there is sufficient education, documentary, scientific, or artistic context." So here's the deal. To all the YouTube guys, to all the Google guys, from now on, I declare myself an artist. This is a form of art, and therefore it must remain on per your rules. Steve, you can do the educational part. We get Jack.
I'm not an artist.
So you're an educational artist. Now, just to the audience, by the way, we've got this domain. You can see it on the TV behind me. StopTheCensors.com. The reason I put that up, it goes to a page where you can leave your email address. That was as quick as I could throw something together when this news broke this morning. So that if we are stopped or banned or shows go down, if we have your direct contact details, we can reach you. We can tell you where to watch the show, all the different platforms, Rumble, send you the links. So people should go to StopTheCensors.com, sign up, and then they won't miss an update from the War Room.
Make sure you go into these news sites, too, as we keep telling you, the new drudges. Citizens Free Press, go to Revolver, go to Populist Press, go to Gateway Pundit, go to Whatfinger. There's others out there. We'll get other names, too. All these they deserve your support, right? Just go and visit the site. What they need is traffic. Just go to the site at Canon 212. The Stream, if you're evangelical Christian, there's life site news. There's spiritual sites out there. There's political sites out there. There's tons of opportunities to support these, and so you should support them every day. Raheem, I want to your summary. This thing that's breaking about the Chinese Communist Party, whether it's Solwell, the report, The Hard Drive from Hell, this video that Darren Beattie's done such an incredible job on. I know you guys have been at the cutting edge over at National Pulse on reporting this. Do you think we're now hitting an inflection point that this is now going to start to get out into the mainstream media? You know, they covered the other day of how the CCP has done this global exercise to try to shift blame away from Hubei province in Wuhan, something that Miles Guo and myself have been talking about since the middle of January of this year. This is the reason we started this show, was because of that. Do you think we're hitting an inflection point on this?
I think you're hitting a point of where the media can no longer ignore it. And I think that's something that we said back in January, talking about how they couldn't ignore the fact that the virus was there and the WHO was in the pocket and all of that. And they tried, bless them, as long as they humanly could. But now I think it's reached, firstly, the American public has pushed this, right? The American public has clued itself up despite the censorship from social media companies to CNN and the rest. So it's reached a point for those guys now where they can't afford to, without looking like more of the morons they already look like, in hiding this stuff. So I think, yes, there's an inflection point on that happening. I think people are also starting to realize just how much influence the Chinese Communist Party has. Very own organizations, within the very own media organizations that they work for. You know, CNN helps to run the Marxist school of journalism with the Chinese Communist Party. And that all will begin to come out more and more also. And just a final thing on that, on the whole thing, you know, it's basically been a year now, right? It's been a year since China started covering up the CCP virus and firing people, and people were going missing and all of that. And it's basically been a year since the media ran interference for them as well. And I think you know, we need to bear that in mind and say to ourselves, hey, you know, who are the truth tellers in this country? They're about to be shut down by YouTube. That's it.
What's on National Pulse today? Talking about truth tellers, what's on National Pulse at 3:00 today? What's on the show?
Just trying to lock down Steve Cortez. I think we've got Steve Cortez going to be joining us as well, and he's got some new information about Georgetown working with China as well. And also we've got this new piece up on the National Pulse by Lieutenant Colonel Tony Schaefer about the steal, about the fraud. You can go and check that out, and we're trying to make sure that we have somebody from the Amistad Project on to give us a daily update as well. Okay,
we've got tons of news to break this afternoon. Everything about the Supreme Court, about the Texas litigation all over the country, and we're going to be jammed. We got Jack Maxey and his analytical team. We're going to have Ian from the whistleblower movement. We're going to have hopefully Jesse Morgan about this protest, and Beth Page about the 144,000 to 288,000 ballots. Where's that trailer? All of it at 5:00 a day. Make sure you don't miss National Pulse. Stay on Real America Voice throughout the day. Stephen K. Bannon. We will see you back with our special at 5 p.m. today. And then again, tomorrow morning at 10 a.m., you'll be in the War Room.